Hello, everyone. I am Vasilis Papakonstantinou. I'm a member of the board of directors of the Hellenic Innovation Network, and it is my pleasure to welcome you to another stimulating discussion organized by the Hellenic Innovation Network in collaboration with the Greek Consulate in Boston and the MIT Enterprise Forum, Greece. Today, we focus the discussion on Greek scale-ups, one of which, at least as far as I know, will be joining NASDAQ next month. Our goal is to present more companies like this in the years to come. I'm sure that some of these companies will be members of the 170 plus strong alumni of the MIT Enterprise Forum Greece Startup Acceleration Program. Companies like Augmenta, which raised 8 million recently through their Series A round. So let me give you a quick update for the current cohort. This year, we have 31 companies spread in 3 tracks: energy, maritime, and general. The teams have attended a series of demanding workshops on topics ranging from business and strategy to leadership, legal, negotiations, and marketing. Last week, the flagship program, The Perfect Pitch, took place, and now the teams are working on a one-to-one basis with our partner Linda Plano to get ready for the forthcoming Perfect Pitch Night, which will take place in early May. During this event, the teams will have the opportunity to pitch to a selected group of investors and business partners. Essentially, they would be practicing for the second judging round that will take place in late May, and it will help us choose the finalists. The finalists will continue with a few more workshops on more specialized topics like investment readiness. And the finals most probably will take place in a physical format in late June, of course, with all the precautions, in order to celebrate the effort the finalists put over the course of these months, and and enjoy the future they will create. The 2021 cohort has some great teams from Greece, Cyprus, UK, US, and Poland, working on different fields from software and hardware to functional food, mixed reality, renewable energy, materials, biotech, to name a few. I'm really excited. I cannot wait to see their growth in the years to come. If you want to learn more about the teams, please go to mitfgreece.org to meet the teams. Now, I would like to welcome Stamatis Astra, a member of the advisory board of the Hellenic Innovation Network, to say a few things about the organization in today's session. Stamatis, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Vasily. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. The Hellenic Innovation Network, an outgrowth of MIT Enterprise Forum Greece, is a US-based non-profit organization which was created with the support of the Consulate General of Greece in Boston to catalyze an active dialogue between global tech hubs and the Greek technology community. We want to facilitate access to valuable resources, best practices, and partnership opportunities. Our mission is to accelerate technological innovation and entrepreneurship in Greece by leveraging the Greek diaspora. We want to aid the establishment of Greece as a world-class innovator by 2030. The Hellenic Innovation Network disseminates Greek startup news to its network, broadcasts educational webcasts, organizes regular meetings of a CEO group, and hopefully soon again, we will host in-person pitching and networking events, which are all open to the community. Now I would like to pass the microphone to our Consulate General of Greece, Mr. Chatzieleftheriou, who has been very supportive in all our efforts and the startups.
Many thanks, Stamatis and Vasily, and of course, Marina. Welcome, dear friends. This year, all the events of the Hellenic Innovation Network are under the auspices of Greece 2021. Our goal is to ignite a discussion on innovation, the revolution of tomorrow. And I would like to thank Mr. Kostas Fragogiannis, the Deputy Minister for Economic Diplomacy and Openness, who honors us with his presence. The Deputy Minister has been helpful from day one, supporting our science diplomacy initiatives. And Boston was on one of his first trips abroad in September 2019, when we organized an innovation event at Workable here in Boston. And Workable is a startup which became a scale-up. The Deputy Minister brought to the foreign ministry his extensive experience from the private sector, and he has been working on attracting FDI and repositioning Greece in the global investment map. One emblematic success was the decision by Volkswagen to proceed to a major investment on the island of Astipala, which will become a model for a smart, emission-free mobility. Without further ado, I welcome the Deputy Minister, Mr. Fragogiannis, and thank you, Mr. Minister.
Well, thank you so much for the kind invitation. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to take part in this special moment in time. Good morning and good afternoon, depending on where you are. I think that I will start my intervention by emphasizing the closeness and pride I feel whenever I think of Boston. My visits there were a turning point for my work here at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in many ways. I was extremely fortunate to actually see economic diplomacy at its best in practice, and for this, I am forever grateful. Actually, what happened after that is that I became more persistent in my goal to formulate an actual policy economic diplomacy for the Greek state, structures and institutions that wouldn't go away if I did. My aim was a new, modern, and outward-looking diplomatic model with the purpose of activating forces throughout the world. My idea to establish scientific diplomacy at the ministry was surely the result of the work I saw already being done by the Greek Consulate of Boston with the tireless Tsaousis, the Hellenic Innovation Network, and MIT Enterprise Forum Greece. So where are we now? Let me give you a brief overview of the current situation. Despite the COVID pandemic, Greece actually recorded a 3.2% increase of exports. What also happened was a drastic increase in online commerce, of course. Boosting exports and attracting investments is what our ministry is all about. We are aiming to increase exports to 48% of our GDP by 2023, up from 37% in 2018. We continuously exhibit openness in the competitive global scene, making good use of our extensive network of commercial attachés. We have already planned some 60 different initiatives in the next few months to make Greece look outwardly in an unprecedented fashion. A dedicated agency, Enterprise Greece, is involved not only in attracting investments, but also in boosting up our exports, something further supported by the Government Organization for Export Credit Insurance. This last organization, OAEP we call it in Greek, will be completely revamped. We worked with the best of the best, the Italian leader SACE, in order to come up with a new business and organizational model, a 5-year strategic development plan, and much wider range of services and products offered, and a new information system. Our greatest achievement, however, has to do with institutional reforms within Greek government structures. Recent legislation now ensures that all government entities related to our international economic presence are roofed under the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. That is Enterprise Greece, all economic and commercial diplomatic attachés, government services for bilateral and multilateral relations, all supervised by a dedicated Minister for Economic Diplomacy and Openness, and of course, a General Secretariat with the same purpose. We also run a series of activities having to do with the training of our exporters, and especially training related to digital skills, digital roundtables, and business-to-business meetings. We started with the e-Exports Academy, and we recorded exceptional response from over 625 companies. A deal between Enterprise Greece and eBay was realized, one that enhances Greek enterprises through their digital transformation and their promotion globally to 200 markets around the world on eBay's successful platform. A Greek e-pavilion is underway, especially designed to promote Greek products, while there will also be a special participation page in Greek. As I'm representing the Greek government as a whole, let me briefly mention Elevate Greece, which is the wonderful initiative by my colleague and friend at the Ministry of Development and Investments, Dr. Christos Dimas, assigned with the Research, Innovation, and Technology portfolio. Launched last October, Elevate Greece is a digital portal aimed at strengthening and developing Greek startups by connecting them with investors and partners and formalizing the ecosystem happenings in one place. The platform also serves as a development hub for the startups' growth, recording their progress on the basis of critical indicators. If you visit the site today, you will find that there are 211 startups already registered, 301 startups that have raised funds, investments of 2.4 billion euros, and 100 plus community builders. The National Startup Awards, rewarding startups for developing innovative products or solutions from scalable enterprises and creating prospects for entering global markets, have also been established. In addition, in mid-March, the European Commission approved the Greek Development Ministry's 60 million euros invitation for support, which is addressed to micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises affected by the pandemic. Elevate Greece is proud to have created the first startup database, mapping the innovation ecosystem by monitoring the number of startups per region, processing statistical data, and analyzing the performance of Greek startups through the use of KPIs, such as their annual turnover and funding received by the enterprises. Talking about funding, let me elaborate a bit more on that topic. Right now in Greece, there is a wide range of funding opportunities, whether it is by using structural funds from the 2021 to 2027 NSRF, that's the National Strategic Reference Framework, venture capital funds or angel investors, and there is a state aid incentive scheme for strategic investments, fast-track procedures, coupled with a competitive tax relief scheme for R&D investments. Plus, on top of that, only last week, on March 31st, the Greek government revealed the so-called National Recovery Plan, dubbed Ellada 2.0, Greece 2.0. To implement its plan, Greece will be requesting the total funds it is eligible for from the European Union, the RRF, the Recovery and Resilience Fund, 17.8 billion euro of subsidies and 12.7 billion euro in loans, actually mobilizing a total of 57.4 billion euros for use. Funding will thus be channeled into 4 key areas: digital transformation, boosting employment and enhancing health, education, and social cohesion, the green economy, and attracting investments. We are aiming to increase direct foreign investment to 4% of our GDP in 2023 from just 1.8% of 2019. We have a good record so far. Pfizer, the US pharmaceutical, chose Thessaloniki as the site of one of its global digital hubs, a high-tech facility which is already functioning. Microsoft Corporation announced its GR for Growth initiative, a grandiose plan that includes building new data centers and establishing a Microsoft cloud in Greece. This will constitute the largest investment Microsoft has made in the 28 years the company has been operating here. My team here at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, along with 4 other ministries, are currently working very hard with Volkswagen to develop the so-called Smart and Sustainable Island project on Astypalia. The island will be the model for climate neutral e-mobility, leading to an era of smart solutions and green power generation. The last of investments that I would like to mention is about Next Ego Mobile, which is a European manufacturer of battery electric vehicles, which signed a letter of intent with Enterprise Greece, marking the first step for the creation of a full-scale manufacturing facility with an initial production of up to 30,000 vehicles per year. On the innovation front, another recent initiative taken by the Greek government is the creation of an innovation hub on the premises of the old factory Chropi in the area of Athens, a very central and very convenient location. This abandoned property is sure to create synergies for innovation, hosting business, research and development departments, startups, researchers, and academia in an area of almost 18,000 square meters. At the same time, there is an array of initiatives where private industries are working with the Greek government. One example will be the New World New Skills program run by PricewaterhouseCoopers, providing startups with skills that will help them remain viable through sophisticated webinars held in Greek. 2020, my friends, was a year of unusual uncertainty and three big forces that are shaping the modern world change trajectory. Globalization seems to have taken a pause. The geopolitical rivalry between America and China has intensified, and the digital revolution has been radically accelerated. This proved to be somewhat of a silver lining amid the crisis, especially for a country like Greece, where digital was still not really a household word a few years ago. Actually, the pandemic compressed years worth of transformation into a few months, changing so much from remote working to online retailing. We are doing well in this front, and I'm very confident that this crisis will bring many opportunities to our country that will quickly be back on track, having been rebranded in the past 20 months as a country that welcomes investments, provides stability and security, and leapfrogs forward. Before closing, I would like to say something about the other guests on this specific panel. I think that the best thing for the Greek government to do, or for any government to do for that matter, is to actively listen to people like the ones joining me today. When I think of these people, Alex Chatzieleftheriou from Blueground, Dimitris Tsingos from Epignosis, Kostas Tsaousis from NetData, and George Palikaras from Metamaterial, I actually am in awe. What they have accomplished is phenomenal. Blueground has raised a total of $78 million in equity funding and aspires to growing its portfolio to 50,000 apartments from 3,600. When I look at the beautiful places offered, I am tempted to move out of my own home and join you, as you have me totally convinced that what you're offering is exactly what you say, beautiful places that people love to call home. With Epignosis, what a perfect Greek international word that is, I have felt that the process of democracy, so appropriately identified with Athens and Greece, is now being applied to the process of learning. With 11 million learners and 3 million courses over 70,000 portals, Epignosis is truly the leading software solutions provider that has democratized learning, making it accessible and affordable to organizations and companies worldwide. And then there is NetData. I think it making all kinds of lists. The definitive guide of cloud monitoring tools for 2021, the 7 best cloud monitoring tools for perfect cloud management, and the Forbes Cloud 100 Rising Stars that recognize 20 startups on the cutting edge of the industry. With 52,000 GitHub stars, thousands of new users every day, and a user base of over 4 million, NetData is proving to be a distributed systems health monitoring and performance troubleshooting platform for cloud ecosystems of choice. Last, but surely not least, a few words about George Palikaras from Metamaterial. The engineering of materials with properties not found naturally is, of course, wow, inspiring, and I'm hoping that one day George will sit down with me and explain some of the benefits of photonics in a clear and practical way. I'm also interested in hearing about some of the startups he has had with over 150 patents, and what his personal 30 patents of which he is named inventor involved. Lastly, special thanks to Vasilis Papakonstantinou and Stamatis Astra for the introduction, and of course, Marina Hatsopoulos, the hostess of this panel. She is an inspiration for all of us, combining acute entrepreneurial skills, a solid scientific background, and the sensitivity of an accomplished writer and motivational speaker. Actually, I'm hoping that your knowledge, expertise, and experience will be put to good use by all of us here in Greece, and that many more like you will follow in the near future. Thank you so very much for your attention, and I wish you the very, very best in this session today.
Wow. Thank you so much, Deputy Minister. That was incredible and so exciting to hear all of the plans that you have in place and what you've already done. I would like to invite the other panelists to turn on their cameras so we can see them. And this is, as you say, just an incredible group of entrepreneurs. So I would like to ask them if they have any questions for you about what the plans are for the government. Do any of you have any questions that you'd like to ask the Deputy Minister while we have him?
Yes, Marina, can I ask a question?
Please.
Excellent presentation, Minister. We're all very excited to be supporting the next chapter for the Greek economy and invest in Greece. I would love to hear what are your current plans from an embassy perspective with foreign trade and connecting, for example, the Trade Commissioner Service, supporting both inbound and outbound business strategies. Thank you.
Thank you, George, for the question. There is 4 ways in which we can bring the business communities from one country to another in contact with each other. First of all, there is a number of commercial attachés in more than 150 locations all over the world, in embassies and consul general offices throughout the planet. These people, together with the Office of Economic Diplomacy in our headquarters in Athens, work closely towards bringing the two together. Second, agency, the official trade and invest agency of the country, which is Enterprise Greece, is very supportive towards Greek businesses that wish to internationalize themselves, whether it is related to exports or it is related to joint ventures, associations, representation, whatever that is. They are welcome to take part in the business endeavors of Enterprise Greece, together with the commercial attachés of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Thirdly, we employ just about any imaginable solution towards bringing the two communities together. Virtual roundtables, business-to-business meetings, taking part in digital fairs. We've gone to the point of giving the opportunity to small businesses and startups take part in expensive and sophisticated portals and selling platforms such as eBay and Alibaba in order to access the big markets in which these platforms are present. And finally, through scientific diplomacy, we give the opportunity for the academic community and the scientific community to come in contact with the business community on both sides of the Atlantic. So you will be seeing plenty of it. And I just wish to stress that the Ministry of Foreign Affairs is not a productive ministry. It is not tourism. It is not health. It is not energy. So we work across the line with all ministries of the government. And our role is to play a coordinative role in as far as bringing the business communities, whether it is related to tourism or to startups or to health or to defense or to whatever that may be, with the appropriate bodies to complete their mission and realize their plans.
Can I ask a question as well?
Oh, of course.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Minister, for being here today. I would like to ask you if you are considering any program of startup visa for Greece. I have in mind that there is great talent in cities like Cairo or like Beirut that would love to move to Athens and join great companies that are created there. And a kind of a startup visa program would really help such an initiative.
The answer is very simple, Mr. Tsingos. Yes, we are. As a matter of fact, I asked myself whether you have planted a microphone in my office, because only yesterday we had a meeting that is related to the type and number and kinds of visas that we will be offering for a number of reasons, including startups and young professionals who wish to become digital nomads and make it to Greece? So the answer is yes, we are working on it, and very soon you will hear some very promising and good news related to that. I also have a question to Mr. Palikaras. You seem to be standing before the Golden Gate Bridge, and I just want to ask, are you in San Francisco?
I'm personally on the other side of the coast. We actually have a similar bridge in Halifax, Nova Scotia. However, my company has offices in Silicon Valley, so I'm kind of back and forth between the coasts, and hopefully we can bring some of that technology over to Greece very soon.
Well, you just made me homesick, sir, because I spent 7 years in San Francisco, and a little bit of my heart is there. So,
amazing place. Absolutely.
Exactly.
Thank you so much, Deputy Minister. I can't thank you enough. And we hope at our next in-person event to see you in the flesh.
Looking forward, Marina. Thank you, Stratos. Thank you all. Big success in your endeavors today and in your discussions. I sincerely hope that soon we will be meeting each other in person. All the best.
Wonderful. Thank you. So we're going to move now to our panelists. And just to give you a brief overview and context about who these entrepreneurs are and where their companies are at what stage. First of all, we all know that most startups fail. And so to get to the stage that these startups are is really a tremendous accomplishment. While there's huge startup fever in Greece, these are the entrepreneurs that have gotten through that phase and are now scaling up their businesses. So it's really amazing. To give us some context, let's just go around. Alex, George, Costa, Dimitri, in that order. Tell us, what does your business do and how big is it? A sense of scale, either revenues or employees.
Sure. Marina, great to be here. Thank you for the invitation. Great to hear the Deputy Minister also welcoming the digital nomads that will probably stay in one of our apartments when they come to Athens. So what Blueground does, we offer beautifully designed and fully equipped apartments for stays of 30 days or longer. We're active in 14 cities around the world, in the US, Europe, and Middle East. And in terms of size, we have about 380 people that are in the team, and our revenue run rate is about $100 million.
Amazing. George?
Thanks, Marina, for hosting us. It's great to be amongst such esteemed entrepreneurs. So I'll start by explaining what we do. With every great advancement in human history, we can attribute it to a breakthrough in material science. If you think about Silicon Valley, this 60 years ago was attributed to the invention of silicon and semiconductor materials and how to manipulate them. So at Meta, we are a new type of material scientist type company where we are leading the revolution of smart nanomaterials, with the caveat that we do not anymore need to use rare earth and precious metals. And our products are used across aerospace, telecoms, consumer electronics, automotive, medical, and clean tech. We are a global clean tech 100 company today with 60 people getting ready to uplist on the NASDAQ next month with about a $300 million market cap approximately.
Very impressive. Costa?
Hi, impressive panel and amazing introduction so far. So NetData, at NetData, we're trying to simplify monitoring, servers monitoring, computer monitoring, cloud monitoring for most of the world. Most of the engineers around the world struggle with monitoring, and I think we have a pretty unique proposal for them. So far, we have amazing traction. So we enjoy more than 10,000 new users every 24 hours, more than 500,000 downloads every day. We are the fourth most started project in CNCF, the Cloud Native Computing Foundation. We are 50 people. We have raised so far 35 million from Silicon Valley and Israel and Greece, of course. and we are all working remotely before and after COVID in 20 time zones.
Yeah, crazy times.
Crazy
Thank you, Costa. Dimitri?
So hello, everybody. I'm Dimitris Tsingos, co-founder at Epignosis. It's a great pleasure to be here in very good company. So the mission of Epignosis is to develop learning technologies for the enterprise. We help companies of any size to educate and train their employees, but also people around them. It's not a new company. My co-founder Thanos and I started back in 2003, so it's been a very long journey. But we are very happy to say that currently we have more than 10,000 actually customers, paying customers all around the world. We have added more than 2,000 customers since the marketing brief for this event was written. So the business is growing very, very nicely. What makes Epignosis an interesting company is that 2020 was our 11th year in a row of profitability. So from 2010 to 2020, we have 11 years in a row that we are profitable with an EBITDA margin in the likes of 50% all these years. This year, we forecast an annual recurring revenue in the range of $40 million US. We are around 140 people right now, most of them in Athens, and few of them in other hubs around the world. And we are really, really optimistic. The world's economy is becoming more and more knowledge intensive, and we think that democratizing learning is a very interesting thing to do right now. So looking forward to a very constructive conversation.
That's great. I mean, that is something that I've noticed in Greek startups, because oftentimes the lack of funding 10 years ago or 15 years ago, these companies had to become profitable very young. And so it's amazing to see that in such a young business. Okay, you've each kind of semi-answered my next two questions. So whichever one you haven't answered, if you could talk about how much money you've raised, from where, and your market cap, or if you've already talked about that, talk about your presence in Greece. Alex, do you want to start?
Sure. Yeah, we've raised a total of $78 million from a number of venture capital funds in Europe and the US. This includes Westcap, Prime Venture, and Venture Friends. Yeah, I mean, this has been instrumental in terms of kind of expanding in different markets, and we've used that capital to develop our technology, but also launch additional markets. And you mentioned a little bit before about capital efficiency. That has been really big focus for us. When compared to other players in the space, I think that's where Blueground really has shined in terms of being more efficient, expanding, going further with less capital. In terms of our presence in Greece, we have about half of our team located there, and our product engineering teams, accounting, finance, and a number of other functions are focused there. Then we have operations in all the markets we're active, so that's in the US and Europe and the Middle East. And we need to have kind of local teams where we, as you know, we operate all these apartments. So that's a necessary aspect of our business. Of course, Greece is really key for us. I mean, that's where we launched. That's where we've proven the model. And today, it's still one of the most successful markets we have. So we're really relying on continuing increasing the team over there. And that remains like a cornerstone of the business.
Thank you. George?
So from my side, I didn't mention where we're headquartered. So we actually started our company in the UK. This is where all the three Greek co-founders met. My other co-founder, Themos Kalos, has a PhD in plasma physics from University of Southern California. We have a guy who studied not too far from you, Marina, at the Northeastern University in Boston. So we all met in London, started there. We wanted to work in Greece for obvious reasons. But the last 10 years has been quite difficult, especially for a nanotechnology kind of company. So we had to always have a global outlook. We expanded west. So we first expanded in Canada, where we moved our headquarters in Halifax on the East Coast. And then we expanded again in Silicon Valley. So we acquired two companies as a private company. went public last year on the Canadian Junior Exchange. As I mentioned, next month we're uplisting. We're in the final stages on the NASDAQ. Very exciting journey so far. And we have raised just over $80 million US from Series Seed to Series A, then went public. And we have recently raised just over 20 million in the last round. From a percentage of the team being in Greece, so we are in the process of establishing, and this is kind of the news that I wanted to share with everyone here today, a special announcement that Athens is going to become our headquarters for Europe for sales and for a digital R&D center. And in that new space, we plan to have both our 5G applications, but also our entire software team, which involves machine learning and deep data. And we are going to be working through a portal that Endeavor Greece, which is one of the things that we belong to. It's called workintech.gr, and they are helping us establish our jobs and look for talent in Greece. So we estimate a 10 to 15% of our team to be located there by year end. And so we're very excited about that and looking forward to any support that the consulate and Endeavor Greece can offer us in that establishment.
Fantastic. Costa.
Marina, I'd like to, I don't know if Costa wants to.
Yeah, go on, Dimitris.
I'd like to make a more general remark about funding. So if you guys, search about Epignosis, you will find out that we have not made public announcements about our funding. It is known to the market that Epignosis recently, 2017 and 2018, we raised 2 big growth equity rounds, a little bit less than Blueground perhaps, but really big for the Greek standards, and actually from very prominent US growth equity firms, probably the largest growth equity firm in software around the world. However, there is some reason that we do not focus on this too much, because we really think that especially young entrepreneurs should not focus too much on funding. Mm-hmm. If you ask young people, they think that funding is the largest problem they have. However, we found out the hard way that knowledge is much more important than funding. So our growth investors have invested in 350 companies. If we focus conversation on that, we are yet another of 350 companies. But if you look at financial profile, it's a very rare, a unique profile. So I'd like to invite young people and younger of any age, new entrepreneurs, instead of focusing on the lack of capital. And Mr. Fragogiannis said that currently there is no lack of capital in Greece. There is plenty of capital. There is knowledge out there. There's lean startup, agile, customer development, design thinking. Knowledge is public, and it all takes creativity and teamwork. So I think we should focus on that. Younger people should focus on this, and get as much funding as you need, but no more than that.
I think that
over focus on the funding.
I think that's a very good point. I mean, I know here in the US, it's very much a figure of merit, how much you've raised, and that becomes the end point when really that's just your starting point. That's just
it's a means to an end. It's not an end itself, right?
Exactly. So thank you for that. And Costa, by the way, Costa, you have the most beautiful background of anyone. So
thank you very much. I am in Athens at Plaka. Yeah, that's
gorgeous.
A working space we have here. So as I said, NetData has raised 35 million so far. We are at Series A, Seed and A, from Bain Capital at San Francisco, Marathon here in Greece, and Bessemer from Israel. We have so let's say half of our people are Greeks, 40% of them are working in Greece. Totally remote, so we don't have headquarters anywhere. Our post-money valuation of the last round is $102 million. But I totally agree with Dimitris. All these figures are not important, and if there is strong knowledge and a good product, I think there are plenty of money out there for every need, for every project.
Yes, that's great. So let me ask, this is an open-ended question for any of you, and you don't all have to answer, but my question is, when you're scaling the business, what is the hardest element? What's keeping you from going faster? If I said, I want you to grow twice as fast as your current budget, what's keeping you from doing that?
I can take that.
Sure.
So unlike my fellow speakers, we are in the hardware business.
Mm-hmm.
And hardware requires manufacturing technologies, especially when you're pioneering a field like nanomaterials, where sometimes existing technologies are just not good enough or can't scale, or just the suppliers don't have the knowledge, perhaps. So the minister earlier mentioned that we have 150 patents. We are now at 164 to be exact. And this IP came through a huge amount of development. We were a handful of people for the first 5 years, very lean, extremely, let's say, funded by ourselves for a very long time. And then we started getting some traction from customers who invested in our scale up. So for us, it was more about validating this at scale, what we could manufacture. And to do that, you need partners. So unfortunately, during COVID, every single supply chain has been affected. You may have recently seen in the news that certain big automotive companies cannot put in computer chips on their cars, and production has been halted. So these are the little things that, of course, are very important in a hardware business, that you need supply chain management. And no matter how much money you have, you may never be able to just get what you want when you want it, to be able to scale and advance and double, as you said, your speed.
Alex, did you want to?
Yeah, I just want to make a point also on the point on funding. Actually, I mean, it's true there's available capital in Greece. It is also true, in my opinion, that you will have relatively less capital than any competitors in the US. And that's true for Europe versus US, not just Greece. But I think you can actually, that can be turned into a positive. So, I mean, in our case, we had to grow with less capital. Fast forward after a few years, Blueground and its competitors are at scale right now. And we've done much more with much less capital, and there are ways around it, as Dimitris and Costa mentioned, and George. So this is something I guess the point I'm trying to make is that you can be more frugal, you can be smarter, and then fast forward a few years later, you actually build a more efficient business that makes higher returns for the investor. So this is what happened to Blueground. Now going back to the point of growth, in our case, we have a very big TAM, or addressable market. So it's relatively easy to scale if you put capital and add a new apartment and scale the team. They're really, and we've seen companies in the space not do that effectively by how? Not selecting the right assets in the right locations, not getting the right deals done. And we had a number of companies actually in the US that failed during COVID. And so in our case, yes, you can scale, but expanding smartly and not going too fast, not being careful where you're going to expand, can lead to the opposite effect. So I think for us, it's a balance of selecting the right apartments, selecting the right assets, and working with the right deal structures, versus just kind of going crazy where we saw that, and that can actually backfire. So I'm always when investors, this is a very common question you get always from investors, like, can you double? Can you triple? And I always pose and say, no, this is what we can do. Because if we go faster, it will become sloppier, we'll burn more capital, and then you will not be happy with that. So, and that's also something that entrepreneurs should be careful, because sometimes if a business goes too well and you burn more capital, guess what? You're going to need more capital. So you have to have a balance to make sure that you also get the capital you need to grow fast, because you have to generate returns for investors, but also not grow too much and get diluted in later rounds.
That's great. Thank you. I'm curious, how much time pressure do you all feel for getting to a liquidity event? You've made promises to your investors. Now there's this craze over SPACs. Are you feeling SPAC mania? Like, where are you on that timeline? What are you thinking about in terms of liquidity?
Can I take that?
Yeah.
So the good news is that, investors can find liquidity, because there is a so big private equity market, and we see so many transactions, that big private equity firms buy stake from other companies. So the good news is that now, it's not only an acquisition, a strategic acquisition, or an IPO. There are many other ways to provide liquidity to investors, that this does not really put a lot of pressure and stress to the founders and to the rest of the company. So at least in Epignosis, we've taken a very long-term approach. We really think there is so much to do. The brightest days are still ahead of us. So we are not even asking the questions to ourselves when there will be a liquidity event, a total acquisition or something like that. And we are very lucky by the fact that, for the fact that the private equity market, is so active. So our investors can find liquidity whenever they want. And that would be good news for everybody in the firm. But we still have, time ahead to realize our vision.
Marina, one thing I can add here is that, we have already created a liquidity event for our investors. So we are already in Canada, at least in a junior exchange, and we are enhancing the liquidity equation via the transaction we're doing close to next month. So with the recent SPAC transactions, all I can say is that it has created additional interest in our company, because many of them are actually companies that are emerging growth sectors. For example, e-mobility, advanced automotive systems, and these include, believe it or not, the target customers and partners for Meta. So their enhanced liquidity actually creates opportunities for us to enable customer acquisition, or more basically orders that happen because they have more liquidity themselves and more capital to grow. So that creates a kind of an enabling effect for the whole industry. I'm sure many of you may have had the results affecting your business, being that the SPACs are creating additional capital to go around. And at the end of the day, I feel that 2 years ago, when we made the choice, we had term sheets to go to a Series B round. We chose to go public because we wanted to also go long, as Dimitris said. And for us, because we're in the hardware business, vendor risk is always a big question mark. You are always seen as a startup. And if you're trying to sell to Airbus and Samsung and Sony, those are the kind of customers who will look at your balance sheet and they'll just take a tiny little steps because they have all the time in the world. And eventually they want to acquire you if you become very strategic. In our case, we are very industry agnostic. Going public was the right thing for us to do.
Great. We're starting to get questions from the audience, and so I encourage everyone to send in your questions. But before I ask that, I did have a question I wanted to ask you. Those of you with employees in Greece, do you give equity to your employees in Greece, and do they value that equity? Is that something people get? Do you give stock options or do you give straight shares? Talk to us about the sort of employee incentives.
Yeah, I can answer this. So we have a standard policy that every employee gets RSUs. The problem with the Greeks is that they don't understand. So they accept them, of course, but they don't really understand them. For the people we have in the US, not only they understand, but they also ask questions. What is this? What's the other? What's going to happen? Is it double trigger? What's going to happen if someone buys the company, etc., etc. But Greeks, unfortunately, they are not used to it. So we have as a policy to give to everyone, every single employee of the company has, but still most of them don't get it, don't understand. I think it needs a few iterations for them to make money, for some people to make money out of this, and then
when they see their friends becoming millionaires, the light will go on.
Exactly.
Great. We have a question, does anyone else want to answer? No? Okay. We have a question from Palikaras, which is, when do you know it's time to move from startup to scale up? So basically, you know, what's the difference? What changes from startup to scale up? What is that sort of inflection point?
Please.
Go ahead.
Sorry. Oh.
No, a very simple approach is that a startup is a company in search of a business model. When the business model actually works, it is evident to the founders. Mm-hmm. So then the scale-up phase is starting, you know. So a solid validation of the business model. And when you cross the chasm from the early evangelists to mainstream customers, this is the turning point from a startup to a scale-up. And founders must be aware of this. I think that oftentimes this is happening without even the founders noticing it, you know, mm-hmm. after several pivots. But it's very important to be mindful and to understand when you enter the mainstream market. That's a very, very critical point.
Costa, did you want to add to that?
Yes. So I would say that we are in a product growth business. So for us, this works in phases. So we have one phase that we have proven that we have market fit and we have amazing traction. Then we are going to the next phase where we need to transition people, anonymous open source users, to subscribers, let's say, but free subscribers again. And then we need to convert people into customers, to pay customers. Mm-hmm. So for us, this is I think that there is a Greek phrase that you know, where you are running against yourself and you are coming second. This is how I feel. We're racing against ourselves because we are the only ones that are doing this thing in our industry. And in many cases, we struggle with it. So the fun part of this is that in our case, we have to do it again and again and again.
That's a great, I didn't know that expression. That's wonderful. I think the more innovative the company, the more struggles you have being on that front edge. I have a question for all of you. How easy is it or hard is it for you to find employees in Greece with the right capabilities, training, background, and education that you're looking for? And parallel to that, are you seeing a return to Greece of a lot of young talent that left during the economic crisis?
Yeah, let me answer that. We have about 180 people in our Athens offices. You know, there is great talent in Greece. I mean, very hardworking, super capable. They were part of the launching of the business then, also they followed in the expansion of the other markets. So, you know, really, I mean, we had a fantastic experience with hiring Greeks. So I think there are specific areas like engineering, product, also on the business side, operational roles, absolutely. And yeah, we've seen these skills play out, both great English fluency and really hard work, great work ethic. So I think that's definitely a yes. At the same time, you know, as you expand into new markets, obviously you have to hire locally. You have to diversify a little bit where you get people. For example, like in the US, we have a big part of the team of doing branding, marketing, communications. We have in Turkey teams that are doing supply chain. So still our core is Greece, but I think as you expand internationally, you need to be pragmatic about certain things. So I think that's been our experience, and yeah, we'll continue hiring, and we see that as our core kind of base as we expand in different markets. And I think the other thing is, like, especially the team that has been together with the company from the early days, they have a different loyalty, different work ethic, saying it in a good way, because they've seen the business come from nothing to something. And relying on this team is really, really important as you scale up. So yeah, to your question, absolutely, it's a great place to find talent and develop that talent as you go.
In our case, I can say that Greeks are amazing, amazing engineers and scientists. So to our experience, there is a Greek word, the famous Greek word, philotimo. It's very rare to find it anywhere in the world. So Greeks really appreciate when you take care of them, and they try hard to return this favor back to you, which is amazing. And at the same time, although initially we struggled to find skillful people, I think that the funding announcements and the publicity they took in Greece made really a lot of people seek to join us, which is amazing, of course. Now, of course, there are Greeks and very skillful Greeks all over the world. We have a few in almost every continent. A few of them seek to relocate and are doing it. Others are not. So it's a mix of what they tend to do. Most of them love to have this prospect to return back to Greece, but only a few of them do it.
Interesting.
I'd like to add to that there are few people that return to Greece from the generation that left in 2010, but by no means there is no wave yet. There are few individuals that start. I wish they will return. However, what is very encouraging, that's why I asked the question about startup visa. In Epignosis, in a small team of 140 people, relatively small in Athens, we have more than 14 nationalities. 14 nationalities. Okay, perhaps 1 or 2 persons per nationality, but still you find many people from the broader neighborhood who feel very comfortable to work in Athens. So I'd like to advise entrepreneurs that possibly, attend us right now, that in those hubs, there is great talent, and this talent, can very easily relocate to Athens. That's a very big opportunity.
That's great. Okay, we got another question from Panagiotis, which is, what are your key takeaway? What are the ingredients to move from startup to scale up? And most critically, can you do it with the same founding team?
I think you need to be ready to take hard decisions. So most startups, even we did it. So we have you have a year where the first year where you try everything. So whatever you imagine, and you are very happy that you raised money and you're building your dream. And suddenly you come down to reality that a few things work and others don't work. So you have to be prepared to take hard decisions. And I think that as an entrepreneur, you always have to be ready for that. That's the whole point. Of course, you have to do this while trying to have everyone as happy as possible. That's the whole point. Maintaining the best path for the company, and at the same time utilize all resources the best way you can. So yeah, of course, in some cases the roles within the company, the team change. In other cases, the founding team breaks. So there are all kinds of situations out there, all kinds of possible scenarios.
Anyone else want to add to that? No. Okay. So Dimitri, did you want to say something? Okay. So I have some specific questions for you. So I'll start with Alex. So you were talking about capital efficiency, and I think Blueground has been really innovative in that regard. Can you talk about how you've shifted the business model by having the customers provide some of the financing to make it less capital intensive and therefore easier to scale?
Sure. So the way we operate, because our business model is full stack. So when I mean full stack, I mean like from the apartment renting to the design, the furnishing, to the entire kind of experience end to end. So that aspect of the business, which you need to have in order to provide standard quality supply into the market, is capital intensive, because you need to invest in the initial setup of the apartment. And what we've done differently than other players, because exactly as you said, we had to be very frugal, had much less capital, especially in the early days before even raising the first financing. We found ways where we optimized our working capital. So we work with our landlords, property owners, to provide the capital to kind of do all the furnishing and the design by giving them a hefty return on their investment. We work with our guests on the other side to offer plans where they could prepay for better rates. And then in terms of the supply chain, we actually work with the suppliers to get very strong, very good payment terms. And that combination actually turned the cash flow profile of the business from being very demanding in the early days in terms of cash needs to the opposite, right? And that's something that actually, when you compare Blueground to its competitors, and I mentioned this a few times before, but we are 5 times as efficient with our capital as others. And that is again due to the necessity, right? Due to the frugality that we had to, but still a lot of capital, because we have raised 78 million. And I wish we could do it like Dimitris, but you know, it's a different business model. And within our world, you know, that's pretty efficient. That's
very impressive. George, I'm moving to you. Why did you choose to do a reverse merger instead of a SPAC, a direct listing, or an IPO?
Thanks, Marina. So as you know, until last spring, March, Meta was a private company in Canada. We were able to secure significant funding and resources from our initial customers, but as well as some government support that basically minimize the dilution. So the decision to do our first reverse merger, we have done already one. That's how we entered the Canadian junior market. Was intended to be one step of the way, basically to get uplisted on the NASDAQ eventually. So then came COVID, and we needed to pivot a little bit. The merger we are now have pending is with a US company already trading on the NASDAQ. The transaction was agreed back in December last year, and we plan to close it next month. It will bring us additional capital, a clean NASDAQ listing, and access to a self-registration and ATM. These are technical terms that are about $300 million of new capital. But more importantly, we will become the first metamaterial company of our category to be listed on the world's premier technology exchange. And there are many other reasons. For example, attracting the very top talent with a NASDAQ listing, it becomes much more feasible. And the vendor risk that I mentioned earlier on made it possible for us to basically list the way that our large customers see us with a NASDAQ listing is very different. Mm-hmm. And that was the fastest and cheapest way I could see versus a SPAC that has let's say a price tag of about $20 million plus when you start going down that path. Going through an RTO also gave us access to a lot of shareholders. So when we initiated this, we had something about 5,000 shareholders between the companies. We have now in excess of 110,000 shareholders. Wow. And each one of those shareholders is almost like a brand ambassador. Mm-hmm. They have given me ideas that I could spend hours talking about because they take a personal interest in the success of the company.
That's great. Thank you. Moving to Costa, you have an incredibly impressive customer base, Amazon, Google, IBM. In your early days, how did you earn the trust of these very large companies?
So the truth is that it happened by itself. So I didn't do anything. The idea is that when I first released NetData as an open source software, it went viral. So really a lot of people from all over the world. So it's probably the fastest growing project on GitHub. So the idea is that really a lot of people from all over the world were pleased with it, used it internally in many teams, many companies. And I think that this is the strongest proof that you can ever get that you have market fit, that you solve a very common problem in a market when you see this kind of traction. So I think the traction was it, the virality of it. I just hit a nerve. The way I observed monitoring and the way I found that it should be solved really amazed a lot of people.
That's great. Dimitri, you have a very unique relationship with Epignosis in your role at StarTech Ventures. So can you talk about how those two work together? And because it's sort of an unusual business model.
Absolutely. So let me clarify first of all that StarTech Ventures is not a fund. It's a private company, basically of myself and a few close partners. That our mission, is to be a venture builder. So our role in Epignosis, like many other companies in our portfolio, we are co-founders and founding investors. So with this venture builder, we have our mission is twofold. One thing is to work with exceptionally talented individuals who fall completely outside the stereotypical entrepreneur. And because they are outside this dominant, stereotype of the entrepreneur, they were unlikely to become entrepreneurs. So we are working with exceptionally intelligent people like my co-founder Thanos with Epignosis, my co-founder Manos Moskous with Absorba Games, or Vangelis Michalopoulos with Yodek. And with those people, we really support them to become some of the best CEOs out there. And I'm extremely proud of how good CEOs they've become. And the second thing with StarTech is that we found it it was uneasy, we were uncomfortable with this dominant opinion that most startups fail, that 90% of the startups have to fail. Why do they have to fail? So with StarTech Ventures, we are trying to master the art and to discover the science of entrepreneurship and make sure that 90% of the startups will succeed at the end. Mm-hmm. So we did not know how to call what we do. It seems that venture building is what we do. And we are very happy. So far, we have 3 great successes with Absorba Games, Epignosis, and now Yodek, in my humble opinion, the most promising tech company out of Greece. I'm biased, of course, but it's really promising. So, there are 6 companies that follow. And if we manage, to really, we are still halfway, but it's going to be a very interesting Hellenic approach in building sustainable businesses. So this is what we try to do. We are co-founders.
That's great. Well, we have some questions, but we're actually running out of time. I'd like to give you each an opportunity to give a sort of brief answer, which is, what has been your major point of learning in this journey? Some gem of advice that you can give to the startup that's just a few years behind you for this pivoting, this really important inflection point in taking your business to the next level, in any order.
Can I quickly give a punchline, perhaps?
Sure.
But I truly believe it. I don't think it matters what size of company you have, or you think you need to be. All it matters is the size of the problem that you're solving. So if it's a big enough problem, many people will care about enough to pay for it, to use the solution that you're building. And that's really the message that we are, working on very hard things. Nanotechnology is difficult, but there's a lot of ups and downs and bumps along the way. And I think resilience is one of those attributes that you need to always think very positively and figure out ways of solving not only the problems for your customers, but whatever other things that you may have internally, whether it's financial, communication, and otherwise. And I feel that the resilience is really one of the character building things for a lot of Greeks that I've met. They never give up, and I feel that's part of who I am and the thing that keeps me going.
Who wants to go next? You're all going to have to answer.
So the last 10 years, there have been written really a lot of articles and books, etc., about how to build a startup, a successful startup, how to do this or the other, the agile way of working, etc., etc. I think that most of the lessons end to come to a common thing. So at the end of the day, you have to accept failure, that you can learn from failure, and you have to seek. I say inside the company that we are bug hunters, or we're trying to find where the faulty things are. If you are seeking for the faulty things, then for sure you are going to learn. You are going to fix them and learn. Mm-hmm. If you are not looking for them, then you just need luck. That's it. So fail fast, be patient, and you are going to do it. It's that's the message. It's up to you. It's a race against yourself. You can't come second.
Great. Thank you. Who's next? Dimitri.
So if I could say, it might sound a little bit radical, but I would say it's all about love. The mission of a founder is to create an organization where each and every individual in the organization will have the luxury of loving their work, to love what they do. If they love their work, they will be exceptionally good at it, and will, through their work, through their own creativity, they will make the lives of their customers better. So create an organization, cultivate a healthy relationship based on love. That's my humble advice.
Love is the answer. I love it. We need John Lennon here with his guitar.
Exactly.
Alex, can you?
So I think for me, to all aspiring entrepreneurs, founders, starting from Greece, as I remember, like the first steps were making back then, you don't have many. Now it's a bit different, but at the time, we didn't have many entrepreneurial kind of role models, people that say, okay, these are so many successful people that I actually know that develop businesses. And because we haven't, at least for me, I haven't seen many of those. I didn't know many of those. It was difficult to kind of like dream big and create a story. And at the end of the day, what you believe your company will be, will be at the end. So for me, starting, if I did not think that this could be like such a big business that it is today, and then incrementally I got there by success after success after success. So I think that's something when you start in Greece, it's like a little bit difficult. Like when you think about, look at the companies starting in the US, and now the market is like, how can I possibly get there? So I think we're kind of self-sabotaging a little bit, not by kind of thinking big from the early days. So I think that's something that we need to do more and believe in ourselves more. So I think that's something that one advice. And the second piece for me is, many times I'm a very rational person, so I want to see like a problem and how I'm going to solve that problem. But sometimes I don't see an answer to the problem, and there you just have to believe that you're going to solve it and believe that you're going to go through it, even though you don't know the answer. And that can be paralyzing for some people. So, and for me as well. But then at some point, you just plunge in it, you just stay there, and you just kind of persist. To George's point, you're resilient, and an answer might come up. So think of a bigger story and be resilient, even if you don't have the answer.
That's great. All of you, wow, such an honor to be among you and to hear your stories. An incredible job. You are all the face of entrepreneurship in Greece, and it's so important for everyone to see what's next as they launch their own startups. So thank you all so much for your time today. And I'm sorry we didn't get to all the questions, but we can continue this dialogue online on Facebook and LinkedIn. I think it's so many people are really interested to learn from you. Our next event is on May 6th, and also MIT Enterprise Forum Greece will be having a panel on licensing technology, commercializing technology out of a university environment at the Delphi Economic Forum in mid-May. So please join us for those events, and thank you all. Signing off.
Thank you, Marina.
Licensing technology, commercializing technology.